Good morning, and welcome to the Keep Louisiana Beautiful State Conference, a six-part virtual learning series. My name is Susan Russell, and I'm the Executive Director for Keep Louisiana Beautiful. This is the first time in our organization's history that we're doing a virtual conference. Like so many others, we've learned that we have to change and adapt to the circumstances surrounding our pandemic. And so although I am sad that we can't be with you in person, I am encouraged and thrilled that we are able to reach out to even more people through this format, people that maybe otherwise would not have been able to join us in person. So throughout the month of November, we will be conducting a series of six learning series, and they are built to inspire, to encourage, and to energize you, and to provide you with tools and resources to bring back to your local community for a cleaner, more beautiful Louisiana. Keep Louisiana Beautiful brings together people to build and sustain vibrant, clean communities. Through our state network of 40 affiliates and with business partners, schools, churches, civic and community organizations, local and state agencies, and citizens, we're able to provide training and education, tools and resources to protect and to preserve the beauty of Louisiana. By harnessing the collective power of our network, we're able to multiply the impact of our actions. And we like to share our outcomes because I believe when we do this, we inspire others to join our work. And so every year we collect and we publish outcomes from our affiliate network and we celebrate the success. And although our outcomes might be a little off this year, because in the third and fourth quarter of last year, our numbers were down due to our events and our programs being canceled because of the pandemic. But I still want to celebrate our accomplishments. I want to celebrate your accomplishments because together we are making a difference in Louisiana. Last year, Keep Louisiana Beautiful awarded 40 grants, putting $125,000 into local communities, having awarded over $3 million in total. Our Love the Boot awareness campaign reached over 1.7 million people through radio and television ads. And we provided professional development and training to 240 individuals and teachers. We honored 43 individuals and companies in awards totaling over $15,000. Our affiliates educated over 14,000 students and teachers, recycled 1.3 million pounds, and planted over 1,100 trees. We removed 177 tons of litter with the help of over 30,000 volunteers and participants. The value we brought to local communities throughout Louisiana just from this volunteer workforce alone totals over $1 million. KLB is so proud to be able to support our partners in these efforts. None of this work would be possible without the support and guidance from our leadership. We have a statewide board of directors and advisory board members. What makes this group so extraordinary is that they know how to lead, they know how to be decisive, and they know how to get out of my way, which is very helpful to us. I also want to take a moment to thank our top donors for their continued support of our mission work. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge our state of Louisiana and the Department of Ed for entrusting Keep Louisiana Beautiful to administer the litter abatement efforts for our state. I want to thank the many state agencies who have provided support and guidance to KLB. Representatives from these agencies serve and are very active on our advisory board, and for this, we are so very grateful. And finally, I'd like to thank Cabell Mouton, our program and grants manager, who's working behind the scenes today. She deserves all the credit for planning and implementing this conference. She is a valued member of our KLB team. So before we get started with our keynote speaker, I'd like to introduce to you a video message from Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. Lieutenant Governor has been a big supporter and our most public champion for many years now. His support runs the gamut from hosting legislative breakfasts for law enforcement to presenting beautification awards to municipalities. He spearheaded our signature event, Leaders Against Litter, which resulted in over 2,000 elected officials learning more about our work. Most recently, he's volunteered to head up the Love the Boot campaign. He volunteers his time, his energy, and his financial resources to the cause that is very near and dear to his heart. Most recently, he's been traveling the state, bringing attention and hope to local communities devastated by all the recent hurricanes. Volunteer Louisiana, which is commissioned in the Lieutenant Governor's office, has mobilized thousands of volunteers throughout the state, helping those in need. And so Keep Louisiana Beautiful, as we always do, search to how we could play a role in helping these local communities. We were able to secure a $20,000 Keep America Beautiful grant, and our board decided to allocate $50,000 to help with the restoration efforts. So for a total of $70,000, we're going to be making grants to help those neighborhoods and those communities most affected by these storms. This will help them to purchase trees lost as well as damaged receptacles for trash and ash. And so now let's get to the Lieutenant Governor's message. I'd like to introduce to you our Lieutenant Governor, Billy Nungesser.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. Welcome you to the 2020 Keep Louisiana Beautiful Conference. I know that each of you are here because, like me, you're interested in protecting and preserving the beauty of Louisiana, taking steps to pick up litter, increase recycling, and encourage others to do the same makes a real difference in our state. Because of the efforts of so many of you to keep Louisiana beautiful, this is one of the best places on the planet to visit. I want to take a moment to let you know how proud I am of what Keep Louisiana Beautiful is doing to help those impacted by recent hurricanes in southwest Louisiana. Restoration projects to replacing trees, canopies, gardens is going to beautify those areas and is needed now more than ever. I hope during this conference that you will leave armed with ideas and tools to make your area of the state better. As Lieutenant Governor, I promote Louisiana tourism. And although we've had a difficult year between the pandemic and the natural disasters, there's no place more resilient than Louisiana. That's because of our great people like you. And I'd like to remind you that during these times, volunteers are needed throughout the impacted areas. I urge you to go to volunteerlouisiana.gov to sign up to help. Together we can make a difference. Together we will make Louisiana strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So back in February, Keep America Beautiful honored the Lieutenant Governor for the work that he does for our organization by presenting him with the National State Agency Recognition Award. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we were never able to honor him in person. So we'd like to take this moment now to honor him and publicly thank him for the help that he has given us throughout the many, many years. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping rules. So as you know, all of our participants today are muted as well as cameras off, and you will be for the duration of the session. But we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So we encourage you to submit questions in the question and answer box and comments in the comment box. Cabell will be monitoring the chat box, and our keynote speaker, as well as myself, we will be responding to questions. Let's remember to keep all of our questions and comments relevant to the topic of this session. I also want to let you know that all of our sessions will be recorded and they will be posted on our website in early December. So please check back and share these recorded messages. And lastly, I want to remind everyone that these sessions are free and open to anyone. So please share with your friends and your colleagues. Registration will be ongoing, and so they can go to our website and register at any time. And so now let's get to our keynote speaker. And so we thought that we would kick off our conference with someone who would energize us and inspire us to continue doing our important work. And so from Austin, Texas, I'd like to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Pamela Benson Owens. Pam is an entrepreneur for the last 20 years and is president and CEO of Edge of Your Seat Consultant. She most enjoys collaborating and working with organizations to assist in matters regarding all things geared toward organizational effectiveness. Currently, Pam serves as the acting executive director for Six Square, Austin's Black Cultural Arts District. Pam is also in her third year on faculty at the Center of Nonprofit Excellence at Austin's Community College, where she teaches fundraising principles, donor motivations, and diversity. Pam holds an undergraduate degree from Texas A&M University in journalism and a master's degree in human services with a concentration in conflict resolution from St. Edward's University. Please join me today in welcoming Pamela Benson Owens.
Good morning. Good morning. We made it. I am so excited to be here with you. And I want to share with you up front that this is not going to be a keynote. This is going to be a workshopped keynote. So if you don't have pen and paper handy, please grab that. Find something to write with and a little paper. We're going to work together today to explore and get curious about this thing called resilience. If we haven't heard that word once, we've heard it a lot during what has been such an uncertain and challenging time. And if one more person tells me to pivot, goodness gracious. So I stand here with you today and sit here with you today, really excited as a fellow leader, volunteer, and a person who has a heart for community service, and also a person who has been on the journey of a lot of change all at one time and a lot of uncertainty. And I think we can't start without saying uncertain times, pandemic, hurricanes, social unrest, concerns about our organizations, and if you think back to the first half of the pandemic, there was this kind of emerging of overperforming. I don't know how many of you out there Marie Kondoed your closets or color coded your books, but the further we've gone into this space, it's been an opportunity for us to usher in something different from ourselves. So I'm hoping you'll go along with me today on this journey as we explore this thing called resilience. I always like to start with the definition as a grounding. So the definition of resilience in the Webster's Dictionary is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Then it says toughness. Then a little further down, it says spring back, flexible. All right, that's a great place to start. The part of that definition that I want to unpack today is it drops a timeline in there quickly. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. I hope you'll go on this journey with me today to say, we're not going to get bogged down in quickly, and we're not going to let the definition of resilience define how fast we need to do something. Instead, we're going to co-create a new narrative around how do we stay resilient, especially when we feel like we are getting hit over and over and over again with growth opportunities. So here's what I want you to do. First off, I want to level set our time together, and I'm going to ask you to get quiet in your own space. I'm going to ask you to simply focus on you. That right there for some of you is new. I want you to just focus on you And on your piece of paper, I want you to jot down in the last 30 days, what are the 3 things that have either kept you up at night or are on your mind the most? Now, I don't know many of you, and you don't know me, but let me share this with you. Anything that I ask anybody to do, I'm always going to do myself. So for me, here are my 3. The finances and budget of my organization, my team and my volunteers are on my mind a lot. And then I'm always thinking about my leadership during these times. I didn't have a leadership book really for the organization that I lead before the pandemic. And they have still not published one about leading in a pandemic. So I am constantly in the space of thinking about my leadership. I'm going to give you a couple minutes now to jot down the 3 things that keep you up at night or the 3 things that you think about the most. Now, if you've had a little bit of coffee this morning and you're sitting in some brave space and you want to drop those 3 in the chat, we would love that, but you don't have to. I simply want you to jot down the 3 things that are on your mind the most or that are keeping you up at night. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to work on that. Give you another minute to work on that. Okay, so don't you love when you come to a virtual event and the speaker drops you into the vulnerability hot grease right off the bat? I had to because I don't have a lot of time today. And so I wanted to get to the main thing. So tell me this, if that was uncomfortable for you to just think about and write down, share in the chat, was that comfortable or uncomfortable to even explore kind of what's on your mind and what keeps you up at night? Comfortable, uncomfortable? Okay, a lot of you are saying comfortable. Probably because you're intimately familiar with what's on your mind, right? And if there was a discomfort for any of you, here's the deal. We're kind of conditioned to decide that we're okay. So stopping to say that we're not okay is just something that we're not conditioned to do. As a matter of fact, in some instances, our construct says that if we admit that we're not particularly okay, that's a sign of weakness. But guess what? First rule of the resilience game is to name it and claim it. And that really is coming from a position of strength. So just by mere virtue of giving yourself a permission slip to name what's on your mind is already a very powerful step forward. Some of you struggled because you were like, who is she? Only 3? I can do a top 10, right? And certainly we probably could if we kept going. But I want you to look back at your list for a minute and stare at those for a second and see if you can't circle, delineate, focus in on the one that you feel like is the most significant in terms of your brain power that you spend thinking about the most. Try to hone in. What is the top one? If I had to stack rank these, I think this one is probably the hardest. Now, for those of you who couldn't narrow it down, you're already mad at me. But I'm asking you to stay with me during this session and try to hone in on like, what's the number one thing? Here's the note. If I were to come back next week and do this again, you'd have maybe 3 new ones, or they might have changed. That's because the situation that we're in is so fluid and in a variety of ways new to us. I don't know about you, but my threshold around learning is tight. I've had to learn Zoom. I lead a team of millennials. I am the oldest on my team. And so they have started this other language around Slack and Trello and all these things. And I'm like, who is Slack? I don't know Slack. They're like, oh my goodness. So I've had to learn in a different way. It cannot go unsaid that the world that we're living in is very tight and there's a bubbling up. And so that creates some energy in our space. But I want you to hone in on, for you, like what really takes up the brain space? Like, what is it? Is it that you're always in the land of new? Is it that you are used to being a person that has all the answers and now you don't? What are those things for you?
So Pam, if I can jump in, I'll tell you some of the things that keep me up at night. So as the executive director, just the unknown is difficult. And so we are all, I think, used to, we're told plan, 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 and we can build a plan and we can execute a plan. But when things that are out of our control kind of take that plan and pull it out from underneath us, then a lot of times we kind of like, and I know for me, and maybe I was living in kind of a bubble for a while, but for me, I kept saying, oh, in 2 months. Oh, in 3 months, by the end of the summer, we'll get back to normal. As I had mentioned to you when we were talking off camera this morning, this conference, I feel like we've been planning for a year because we always do that in-person conference, and it was to be in September. And then we decided, oh, well, we need to move it back. We'll be okay in November. And then we moved it to November in person. And then we realized and just, I guess, kind of surrendered to the reality that it's not going to happen what we were used to, what we knew and what was comfortable is going to look really different. And so that, of course, brings us to our virtual conference today. But for a time there, I think I was just operating in, this is going to be a mild inconvenience, and we're just going to, have to tweak things a little. And now my mindset is, no, we're kind of in this for a while. So how do we be resilient, and how do we not just survive, but how do we thrive in a condition of, a situation where there's so many uncertainties and things that we don't have control over. I like to be able to think that I am in control of what happens with our organization and even in my personal life. And I think for a lot of our partnering organizations, they probably feel the same, because a lot of what we do, we engage with the community, right? That's where our strength lies, is within that network of thousands of community members and community partners. And so when we can't engage at that level, whether we're educating them or volunteering to do beautification events and those types of things, then for a lot of them, they feel like that the carpet has been ripped out from underneath them. So then what? So I think most of the uncertainty that I've had has been surrounding, I don't know what that next, I don't know what tomorrow looks like. And then on top of that, from our organization as a state, I feel the increased pressure and responsibility of seeing how these local communities are really suffering right now due to COVID. And then, of course, the hurricanes that we have, been dealt with one after the other. And I knew what the need was prior to all that. And that need has just been multiplied so drastically. And we have limited, resources and capacity. And so how can we still be able to serve and help uplift those communities under so many unknown, circumstances? So that's kind of where we are.
Absolutely. So you've eloquently stated everything that's in our heads in this group that we are managing every day. And you've said a lot, and you started with the construct of, I knew I could control this. I had a plan. Now I don't have a plan. Well, that's profound right there. You're absolutely right. We don't necessarily have a plan all the way. So here's what I've learned about my resilience game. And oh, by the way, I have to practice this every day, what I'm going to share with y'all, because it's like building muscle memory, right? So if you work out and you are trying to learn how to plank, and your personal trainer, who you don't like, I don't like him. I'm going to be honest. He's helped me lose 100 pounds, but I don't like him. When I first started planking, I would be grumbling all the time. I'm like, why am I doing this? But over time, as I practiced it, my muscle memory got better. And that's what we have to do as we're in our organizations right now, trying to figure out the way forward, right? We have to do that. So I'm going to share with you kind of some of my rules of engagement over time that I have been really working on, intentionally working on daily to be effective. And let me just say this too. Common sense does not always mean common practice, especially in a time of pandemic, natural disaster, social unrest. Everything you thought you knew looks and feels different. And I sit at the intersection of whatever you think it is, that's not it. And I've had to lean into that space in order to stay upright. So here are some rules of engagement that I want you to think about and jot down and explore for yourself. My first rule of engagement, number one, is mental maintenance. I am tired and sick of people acting like it isn't different and things aren't happening. So to me, my first daily practice is mental maintenance, and that can look a variety of ways. But one of the ones that I recognized very early on was that I had to start reframing my mind. I was starting early, getting in on a group of volunteers and executive directors and community leaders. We would get on this weekly Zoom. And then afterwards, I recognized that my attitude was worse. And I realized that we would get on these Zoom and talk about everything that was wrong. It wasn't helpful to me. So for me, my mental maintenance had to be, I had to start changing my mental landscape. I had to reframe the way I approached my work. Is this a problem or is this an opportunity? Y'all, language matters. Is this a growth opportunity or is this a tragedy? So I had to start framing my mental model differently. I had to change my stinking thinking. And that included even who I engaged with. So every day I say to myself, what is my refresh strategy? What is my reboot strategy? And it's a variety of things. Sometimes it's sitting quietly with a cup of tea or coffee. Sometimes it's a brisk walk. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's calling a colleague that I trust and chatting. Whatever that is for you, number one, mental maintenance. It is not a bi-weekly practice. Mental maintenance, especially now, is a daily, ongoing practice. Remember, I said muscle memory. You have to behave your way to new behaviors in times of change. You have to be intentional about new behaviors in a time when there is so much uncertainty. The second thing that I do is I've had to get clear. I mean, crystal clear. I mean, super duper clear on the difference between what is urgent and what is important, right? If you are in an organization, a nonprofit, everything is urgent and important. I encourage you to unlearn that construct, especially now. Get good at determining what is urgent and what is important. And since my list started with mental maintenance, it might give you a clue that that is indeed urgent every day. You cannot perform to that for which you are not able to anchor and be cognizant of in yourself. So not everything is urgent, not everything is important, but the ability to not commingle those become important. So I always look at my list and go, what is urgent today? Guess what? The longer I go, not many things are urgent, not in this time. So think about that. Number 3, lean in to the unknown. To Susan's point, there's so much unknown. People feel like the rug has been ripped out from under them. You don't feel like it has. It has. So you've got to lean into the unknown and you got to lean into the uncomfortable and you've got to decide that you can do your best work in that space. So instead of allowing the hallway, as I call it, because right now a lot of us are in the hallway, right? We don't know what window is going to open. We don't know what door is going to open. So while we're hanging out on the hallway or outside, get comfortable with, I'm going to lean into this discomfort and I'm going to start learning to do my best work there, right? I'm going to call on those behaviors in me that allow me to function in uncertain space. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be okay with saying, I need to think about that a minute. We're so reactive these days. And this is an opportunity to go, I'm leaning into the discomfort and I'm going to pause and I'm going to think. There is absolute power in the pause. You don't have to have an answer right away. Give yourself permission to think. And oh, by the way, Give yourself permission to think about what you think. It is fully acceptable. And if you're going to be resilient, which is a long game, you gotta slow down. So you can be still in a moment of discomfort. And when you are, it won't eat you up all the time. Number 4, skill build, skill build, skill build. This goes for you, your team, your volunteers, your board, and your advisory board. There is no better time than now to do some skill building. Time is the one thing you cannot get back. So how can you think about what skills might be helpful at this time? For my board, I've done a preservation workshop. I've done a genealogy workshop with a speaker. We've done a team building workshop. My board has done grant writing workshops, communication workshops, conflict resolution workshops, all during this time, all virtually. So think about what are the skills that we could obtain and grow and learn about in this time. Everybody's like, hey, it's virtual space. Virtual space can become your best classroom. So how can you leverage a skill build during this time? How can you, my team said to me the other day, hey, I don't think the board realized they were learning. Correct, because it was edutainment. They were getting educated and entertained all at the same time. Susan, do you have a question or a comment? You want to weigh in on what I'm saying?
Just a little bit. I mean, I love where you're going, and I want to continue on that path. But to backtrack just a little bit, you know, what you were mentioning about our mental maintenance and taking care of ourselves, you know, and making sure, you know, we are, for us to be able to be there for others, we need to make sure that our house is strong, right? And, you know, so many of the people who are on this session today, they come from different backgrounds. So we have some folks from schools and universities, nonprofit organizations, of course, our affiliates. We have folks from state agencies and people in tourism, downtown development, economic development. The one common thread really between all of our attendees is that we all serve the public, we serve people. And so that is a fabulous opportunity. And it's an honor in order to, you know, to be able to do that. But oftentimes it, especially now, I think it feels an extra weight on our shoulders because we engage in the community individuals so much. We're also kind of the first line where we see and we hear and we feel the distress that other people are going through right now. And so it seems like everyone is on the struggle bus. So we have to take care of ourselves and deal with what we're going through personally, but also we are being exposed on an ongoing basis. And it's very real to us, the struggles. And these are people that we work with day in and day out, not just professionally, but in our community work as well. And we, you know, it's hard. And so in one way, it can be seen as a burden, and in other ways, it can be seen as an opportunity for us as well to be able to uplift others. And so I think in a way, our organization and our, you know, group of followers and supporters might feel the impact of this even more so because of our community engagement and because we are on that front line with dealing with the public so much.
Absolutely. And to that point, regardless of where you sit in this space around serving others, whether it's a school or any of the other groups you've named that are on this call today, you have to start, the baseline is you have to take care of yourself, period. The second piece of that is that you have an opportunity to think strategically about how to best support your community. Half the time, when we're in this mode right now where it's uncertain, we overfunction in our need to serve. That's when it feels like a burden, right? We're overfunctioning. Have we all stopped to ask our community what would be helpful? Or do we just deploy based on what we think we should be doing because we need to do something? So one of the pieces around that construct in terms of taking care of the community is stopping to ask the community, which by the way is not monolithic and has all different needs depending on where you are and what you're working on, what might be helpful. And then getting creative about how to provide it in a way that doesn't also crack the foundation of your own organization in your own location where you are. And I think that's really important. And I understand people are always like, Pam, I don't have time to take care of myself. I'm like, you don't have time not to, because to me, it's the foundational piece to be able to do all the work that you're going to do and how you'll do it. You can't even be in creative space if you are tired and haggard. When I see people that are like, oh my gosh, I've worked all these hours a day and I haven't been to sleep, my number one response is that is not attractive to me because it's a long game. So that tells me you're on the resilience train, you're going to burn out. Okay. You're on a quick trip. I'm on a journey. I have stopped off at Buc-ee's and gotten some road trip snacks. I have detoured off to look at the lake because I'm going to be in a restorative model all the time. And you're on a burnout model. So when we rebound, where will you be? If the definition is to rebound, having the capacity to rebound, where will you be when it's time to rebound?
And I think for nonprofits, we might be a little bit different in the sense to where I think we just naturally, people are attracted to this type of work who just have a deep passion and commitment for community, and maybe we're a little bit more nurturing, or but and all those wonderful qualities that are needed also I think make us more susceptible to feeling the pressure of what's going on and being hypersensitive and aware of the community's needs and woes and individuals as well. And so what I try to tell people is, yes, we need to be strong, and we're in this now for the long haul, because like I said, I thought we just needed to get through 3-4 months maybe, and then we were going to be back to normal. And it's becoming very obvious that whatever normal is, we won't see it for a while. And so we need to not just survive, but we need to thrive, and that's going to look differently. And for a lot of our groups, we do events and we do programs. And so when we can't do that anymore, what do we look like? What do we do? What's our purpose? And it's an opportunity. It's kind of like the glass half full or half empty. How are you going to look at it? We have to find the silver lining in everything that we do.
Absolutely.
And we have to have hope and believe that we'll get through this, and we're going to be some kind of way stronger, from it. And so, like I said, even though something as simple as this conference, we love and thrive off of seeing those same familiar faces, once or twice a year, and giving each other hugs, and how have you been feeling, and how are you doing, and that part we miss so desperately. But it's also an opportunity, because if through these virtual formats, if we can reach and educate and inspire even more people, then that's a good thing too. And so I know you were getting into, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about, how do we take this time and use this time in such a great, smart way, to where when we do get back to that normal, whatever that looks like, whenever that will be, we are a stronger organization. We are stronger as individuals. Therefore, we're able to bring more to the table and give more to our organizations. I know, because a lot of our partners, like I started saying before, very event oriented, that sometimes you feel like the hamster on the wheel, and there's never enough time to step back and to strategically do planning and to look at who we need to bring in to kind of build our house and that foundation. And so I hope that you can, you know, I think you were going in that direction, so I'm going to be quiet and let you talk. But I think that's really helpful for people to realize that the silver lining is this is some time that we can kind of reset and build and look at where our weaknesses are, not just as individuals, but as an organization, and try to plug some of those holes and work at developing our capacity and building our capacity. So I'm going to be quiet and let
No,
you.
I love it. I love having conversation about this because I think it's really needed. And if you are not in a space right now where you are taking this as an opportunity to receive, this is a great example of pausing a minute and really sewing into yourself so that you can keep going. And to your point about is the cup half empty or half full, I used to say that all the time until this point. And now, as I'm leading an organization and have had to cancel 3 events, the 3 events that fuel our budget, I now say that the cup is refillable. That's my new construct around continuing on in this space that was only supposed to last 3 months. So now for me, the cup is refillable, and that is extended to me a backup so that I can just gather and get my bearings around what is the new normal, whatever that is. So if you look at number 5 on my list, perfect timing, Susan, it's stop going long on your list and go deeper. This is the perfect time to do what's going really well in our organization. What are opportunities for improvement? Do we want to do 3 things really well, or do we want to do 50 things not so well? What are our core values? Let's check in on those. Are those on paper or are we living them? Do we have everything we need on that, or do we need to convene a conversation about that? That strategic plan, is that sucker gathering dust on a shelf, or is it an active, fluid, working document? Are we performing to that, or are we off kilter? Board recruiting, great time. People are like, you cannot recruit now. Yes, you can. I've done at least 20 Zoom meetings around board recruitment, around advisory board recruitment, around committee building. Yes, you absolutely can. What about a job description audit? Are we running lean because we think that's how it has to be? Do we have everything we need? Is it redundant? What should those look like? What are the skill sets we're going to need for the future? How are we building that? Are our job descriptions archaic? Will they take us into the next level as organizations, or are we stagnant? What is the construct of our team? What's our org chart? Is it straight? Is it right? What should it be? Should we get curious about that? What are our partnership opportunities? People don't think there are partnership opportunities. There are right now. Have we explored that? Who should we be partnering with and why? And then fundraising. Oh, that. Yep. Got to still do that. So how can we get creative about those pieces? Number 6 on my list, check your circle. In this time of pandemic and stress, sometimes the people that have been in your circle because of their own things they're managing can't also be in your corner. And right now you need people in your circle and your corner. It's important to assess that. If you don't have a personal board of directors, I don't mean the board of directors in your organization. I mean a personal board of directors that you can check in with, ask hard questions, and convene hard conversations without judgment. Build one. And oftentimes for me, my board of directors are not people that are necessarily in the same industry or sector or in the same nonprofit circle. I try to diversify it so that I can get a good compass and a good group of people that can help me navigate and think about what I'm doing. Number 7, some of us are probably suffering from opinion fatigue. Number 7 is no response is a response. We don't have to respond to everything that happens and comes up. Sometimes it's important to calibrate and get quiet and still, and you don't have to have an opinion about everything. As a matter of fact, if you're going to be able to stay on the resilience train, don't have an opinion about everything. I was in a board meeting the other day, and a longtime board member said, Pam, what do you think about it? I said, on that one, I don't have an opinion either way. It was pure freedom to not have to have an opinion all the time. It is critical to your resilience game. Number 8, stop wearing busy as a badge of honor. We have perfected the skill of being busy, looking busy, making ourselves busy. Now is the time to push the pause and say, what do I really need to spend my bandwidth and time on? What is the best use of time and energy? How can I best construct this day? Not to be beholden to my list of busyness, but things that I feel like will truly move the needle forward in a meaningful way. And let me be honest, some days that is, I've got to write this grant. And other days it's, I'm about to do this dinosaur puzzle with my youngest child. And I'm going to count that productivity as a victory. If you have questions about that, go back to number 1 around mental maintenance. I was telling the team here that my oldest stopped me the other day because we're all in this space together doing learning and virtual. She said, why are you walking so fast inside the house? Because I wear busy as a badge of honor. Stop doing it and get more mindful about how you're spending your time. Susan, did you want to weigh in?
I just want to applaud that. I love the stop wearing busy as a badge of honor. I think so many of us can relate to that, and thank you for that. Because I don't know what it is, but we just have something in our heads that if we are busy, then we're being productive. And sometimes when we're so busy, we don't even stop to see to figure out where we're going, or when we get there, do we even know it? Do we even know where we're going, and when we get there and what we're accomplished, and we just get consumed by that. And so I love that. And I can tell you, I am as guilty as anybody with that. And if we all kind of just step back and be just a little bit more thoughtful and strategic. And again, I think that the opportunity in all of this is that I think now we do have some time to kind of step back and be more thoughtful and not just be busy because we think that that's what is expected of us, or that's what we know and are comfortable. And I think it pushes us all to get a little uncomfortable. Get a little comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a phrase that I use all the time. My daughter, I just recently moved her to Nashville for college, and she knows no one, and I said, just be comfortable being uncomfortable, and eventually it'll just come natural and you'll be comfortable. And so I think for a lot of us, it's just, we don't want to go there. So we just, keep busy and stay within our little comfort zone of busyness. And this is a time for us we're in an uncomfortable place. And so it's time for us to kind of reset. So thank you for that. I just wanted to
Let me tell y'all what I had to do.
Relate to that.
In the beginning, because I'm a type A list maker. So busy, busy, busy. In the beginning, here's the other thing that you have to keep in mind. When you're in that busy mode, you create an anxious presence. Mm-hmm. So everybody around you, community, volunteers, people that work with you, your team, they will feel that rhythm and that energy. So it becomes really important. So I always say to myself, non-anxious presence, like busy as a badge of honor shows up as anxious. And when people are anxious on your team, then are they going to be their best selves? Are they going to be able to perform in the best way? And so for me, when I got to March, I built into our performance appraisal, you have to be able to demonstrate to me the amount of time you spend doing absolutely nothing. My team hated it at first. They're like, what? You're going to rank our performance on doing nothing. Yep. I need to see a percentage of time when you are not being busy. And now they're like, that's why we're still open. That's why we're still rolling, because in the resilience train, busy will also burn you out. And you will look up and you've really not, what have you really accomplished except an ulcer, anxiety, stress, not much checked off at the end of the day.
You know what else I found, Pam? When I am super busy with being busy, um, I'm not a good listener. I'm too busy doing and I'm not spending enough time listening and really hearing what people are saying to me. And because of the nature of our work, if we disconnect with what people are saying to us and we're not hearing, what's going on, then that's a hole we don't want to, fall into.
Right.
Because then we get disconnected with the communities that we are there to serve. And so it's really important that we take the time to slow down so that we are open to listening and hearing what our constituents are trying to tell us.
You bring up a great point, and you've talked a lot about like how do we make sure that we and the pressure we feel to serve the community and the heaviness of that. Let me go right up the middle when I say if you're a busy bee, you are an all about me. Okay? So busyness and being a busy bee means self-focused, usually ego-driven. I'd have a hard talk with myself about this. Busy, 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 busy. If I'm so busy that I'm distracted, to your point, about really being able to listen and be sensitive to what's going on around me. And that makes us then have to be active listeners and listen to understand versus listen to have a rebuttal or a response. You got to intentionally practice that. So let me get to the last two because we're running out of time. Number 9, self-compassion and patience is a critical strategy. We started, people were Marie Kondoing their closets, color coding their books, performing. No. Nobody writes the expectations list. As a matter of fact, expectations is the assassin of performance most often. Demonstrate some self-compassion. Be nice to yourself. Cut yourself some slack, right? I'm not saying don't perform. I'm saying you'll be a better performer and more effective if you issue some self-compassion, right? We've all been kind of in a fog. Like, how do I make this happen? We're not working, we're working from home. In some instances for you, you've experienced a hurricane. Resources are, nil. You're working from a generator. Things are, slow down. Self-compassion. Ebb on the side of what did I do today? Or if I didn't do anything today, tomorrow's another day. Self-compassion is so important. Last one, number 10. Oh, this one will be less desirable for most. Get rid of balance and replace it with integration. We hear and we have been pelted with work-life balance, drop it. Work-life balance can become stressful trying to achieve work-life balance. Work-life integration, more effective. What does that mean, Pam? It means that some days I'm going to be super effective in my workspace, and other days, maybe not so much because I've had to channel my energy to being all the other hats that I wear. Parent, spouse, community volunteer, advocate, whatever that is. Integration is more aligned with how life works than balance. It just is. So give yourself permission to operate in a space of work-life integration and not work-life balance. Balance becomes, how many of you can say, I balance 50-50 every day between work and the rest of my life? If you have figured that out totally, You could be absolutely a best-selling author. Tell us the formula. The bottom line is there isn't a formula. But what is possible is integration. And all the things that I need to accomplish today, I'm going to integrate all of these things. And I'm going to start with mental maintenance. And when you start to do those things, you will see the construct around your stress and anxiety and the things that made it onto your list will start to not feel so concerning and so heavy. And so that's my stick. Those are my rules of engagement around resilience. And just remember, even if you start by practicing one of the things I've named, you're already rolling on the resilience train. If you just pick up one of the 10 and say, I'm going to work on this, you are already ahead and doing well. That's it for me. Any questions, comments, feedback, clarification?
Thank you, Pam. I think it's always, I think it's always refreshing to have someone else tell you what you sometimes don't know. Sometimes you do know, but you just need to hear it from someone else. We've all, we've all read articles, because a lot of people, of course, right now are talking about, being resilient and strong and hanging in there. And we read articles and different things on social media. And so it's kind of like, it, but someone else has to tell you, face to face. And so I thank you for your messages. I think, at least for me, it does give me energy and it gives me hope. And, to know that, that's it. It's okay. And we are going to be fine and we're going to be stronger, and that we need to use these opportunities to work with our board, to work with our volunteers, to work with our staff, to make progress in other areas that maybe we wouldn't, have had time to before. And so thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you all our participants for joining us today. And unless there are no other questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's session. And so, Pam, I know that you're not that far away, just in Austin, Texas. So we hope to stay in touch with you, and we hope to maybe make this an ongoing partnership. So thank you very much for making time to be with us today. Our next conference session will be held next Tuesday, November 10th. And our speakers will be Mark Benefiel. He is the professor over at LSU in the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Science. Many of y'all remember Mark from several years ago when he presented on his findings in the Gulf of Mexico and microplastics. Well, he's back, and he's going to be sharing with us some of his findings from a study he has done in response to COVID and the new PPE litter that it has generated. And so we also going to hear from Andy Brown. She is the new director of Ouachita Green, and Katie Dupree from Parish Proud. And they're going to talk to us specifically about how they have changed and figured out how to continue to do community events in response to the pandemic. They are recruiting and managing volunteers a little bit differently, but they're still finding great success. And they're finding that people really still want to come out and be a part of the community. It's a way that they can still feel connected and uplifted. And perhaps maybe now more than ever, I know we're so tired of hearing that phrase, it's an opportunity to engage our volunteers. So please join us for that session. If you are not already registered, like I said earlier, go to our website, and registration is ongoing for that session and all of them. So that concludes today's session. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your Thursday. And I look forward to chatting again with you on Tuesday. Take care. Thank you.